I'm Gareth with Flint Hills Briar. Thanks for joining me. So this will be epic story number 2. And yeah, if everything looks very similar to my last video that I uploaded, it's because I'm recording it right after I recorded that one. So I am having some Ken Byron Ventures Burley Morning Pipe in my custom built pot. Kind of one of my designated Burley pipes. So the last story involved some Colorado 14ers, that being mountains in Colorado. They're above 14,000 feet. And this story also involves another Colorado 14er. This time it's Castle Peak, which is fairly near Aspen, Colorado, kind of in the central part of the mountains. And to the south of Aspen, Colorado, it's all the Rocky Mountains, but there's different kind of sub-ranges within the Rockies there. And the Elk Mountains are the ones that are just south of Aspen. And the Elk Range includes like the Maroon Bells, which, if you don't know what they look like, if you like Google search Maroon Bells, it'll bring up pictures, and you've definitely seen it before. They're some of the most photographed mountains in Colorado. But a lot of the mountains in the Elk Range, they're made out of sandstone, like the Maroon Bells, and they're very neat looking, pretty mountains. But that sandstone is crumbly. It's crappy rock. It's loose. Like on the Maroon Bells, you have to worry about like mountain goats knocking rocks down on top of you, because there's a lot of mountain goats up there, and they do knock rocks loose. So you definitely want to wear a helmet. But I'd say this probably isn't going to be the only story about the Elk Mountains that I'll eventually tell. But anyway, among the 14ers, actually the easiest one to climb is the highest of the Elk Range, the highest of the 14ers in the Elk Range, and that's Castle Peak. In Castle Peak, there is a four-wheel drive road that you can drive up to like 12,000 something feet. If you drive up all that way, you can park, and then it's not, it's like maybe less than 2,000 feet vertical from there to the summit. Although it is, you're going over mountain terrain to get there. It's not like you can just, drive most of the way to the top and just hop, skip, and a jump and you're up there. But my sister and I, this would have been about, I guess, the summer before the kid on the train story. But anyway, we wanted to climb Castle Peak, and it was like the last thing we were going to do on that trip before we headed home. And we camped down at a campsite considerably lower on the road. We didn't even try driving up the road all that far. So that morning we got an early start before the sun came up, and we started hiking up the road. And we eventually got up to the northern terminus, the upper terminus of the road. And Castle Peak, the probably the standard route on it. People, you really need to do it when there's still some snow on it. So like in June or earlier July, the upper part was melted out by the time we were there. So we took the next most popular route on it, which you don't really need the snow to climb on, but we had to go over quite a bit of snow on it. So there's like snow slopes, and there's a lot of rock on the edges of the snow. And we get up past the snow, and I don't know if the skies, here's more weather issues. I don't know if the skies necessarily look that crazy, but I look at my sister, and her hair is standing on end, which, yeah, not like I've never said that in a story before. So I'm like, crap, So and we descended because it was the prudent thing to do. Got down to a little bit safer location where I felt less likely we'd be hit by lightning. Um, but then the sky cleared. It didn't seem threatening, so we turned around and headed back up and regained the elevation that we had lost. Got up onto the ridge, and it actually started snowing just a little bit. Nothing crazy, but had snow coming down on us, and it was like late July, when it obviously can snow any time of year up there. And we just we proceeded up the ridge to the summit. Anyway, at some point in time, as we were hiking up the mountain, we became aware that there was a rather noisy group of other people that were hiking up Castle Peak below us. And when we get to the summit, these guys show up there. It's like 5 fraternity brothers. We're up on the summit of the mountain, and they get up there, and one guy starts dumping out a whole bunch of water. It's like he thought, I guess, they brought too much water, so he was just dumping the weight up on the top. One of the guys, it's like up smoking a cigarette or something. And there's a couple other folks, maybe about 3 other people that had also got to the summit about the same time. And apparently, 2 of these guys, I think they were from Louisiana. 2 of them were in the Aspen area for the summer, working a summer job, and it was getting close to time to go back to school. So that 3 of their buddies came out, and they were going to have some fun before they headed back home and to school. And they wanted to climb one of the 14ers in the area, apparently. And these guys just seemed kind of clueless about being in the mountains, sort of stuff. And one of them said that they were thinking about doing the Maroon Bells, but for some reason, either the route seemed too complicated or something. And it's probably a good thing they didn't try that, because I don't know what would happen. They might have really gotten themselves in some serious or deadly trouble if they tried that. But anyway, we're up on the summit. We start heading down. And I think of all the hikers, we headed down first. No, actually, that's wrong. The frat guys headed down before we did. And then the other 3 people would have been behind us. So on this route, you go down from the summit along the ridge, and this is all snow-free. And eventually, you have to drop back off the ridge, and then there's a snow field. It's kind of like a strip of snow that descends downhill. And on both sides of it, there's rocks, boulders and talus, which is big chunks of rock, which are at least big enough to step on the pieces of rock separately, whereas there's stuff called scree, and that's a lot smaller. Sometimes scree is almost like teeny pebbles, but it can also be fairly small, chunky rock too. But anyway, there's talus on either side and boulders and stuff. And also there's a few pieces of talus right in the middle of this kind of snow chute, not really chute, but this kind of snow field. And those guys were descending that while we were still coming down off the ridge. As we're coming down, we hear, they were just being noisy in general, but we heard somebody yell. And we really didn't think much of it, because they were just so noisy in general. and they're out of sight at this point in time. So we get off the ridge, we start heading down the snow, and we look down there, and in the middle of the snow field, there's one guy laying on the snow, and then two guys standing there. And I don't know if I said this before. Yeah, there's a group of 5 of them. So 2 of them are gone. So we get a little bit closer, and the 2 guys that are standing there say something like, either they flat out said he broke his leg, or they said that he hit a rock and he hurt his leg, something like that. What these geniuses had done was they brought trash bags with them, and then for the snow slope part, they I guess, I don't know, poked holes in the trash bag or something, stuck their legs through it, and then proceeded to slide down the snow, which is fine if you do that in an area where you're not going to hit anything and you don't have to worry about stopping, because you'll to eventually just run out and it'll the slope will ease off. Well, that's an extremely dangerous thing to do when there's all these rocks around and stuff and you have no way of stopping. I mean, people slide. I've done it before. You glissade, you slide down with an ice axe on a snow slope, but if you get going too fast, you have an ice axe, you're able to slow yourself down or stop, that sort of thing. Anyway, these guys just slid down a trash bag and hoped for the best. Well, one of these guys, he slid right into a rock with his leg. The good thing these guys did, they had driven all the way up in a Suburban. So, and their group was big enough that 2 of the guys stayed with the guy with the broken leg. The other 2 hiked down to get in their Suburban and then drive down until they could get cell coverage. So we, stopped to help this guy out in whatever way we could. And then also the two people behind us. There was one guy by himself, and then there was 2 people. It was like a guy and a girl, guy and a lady. And we just try to keep this guy as comfortable and warm, because he's laying on snow, as we can. And I had a space blanket, a Mylar space blanket that I'd carried around in my pack for years, never needing it. So I, put that over him, and we put, some extra clothing, I had a sweatshirt we put underneath him, and I had some wool mittens, put those on his hands, that sort of thing. And yeah, his leg was, he couldn't stand, he couldn't go anywhere. And so basically we're just waiting for the rescuer folks to show up. And I don't know how long we were up there. I mean, this was a number of hours. And as noon or early afternoon approached, of course, no surprise, the sky starts to darken and it starts looking like it's gonna start raining and have thunder and lightning. It was looking so likely. The thought was going through my head okay, if the lightning starts, what are we gonna do? And all I could really think was, well, if it gets bad, we'll just, we're just gonna have to make sure that the injured guy is as comfortable as he can be. And for my part, my sister and I, we're going to go head downhill a good ways to an area that's a little less likely to get hit by lightning, and just wait for it to stop. Fortunately, it never started. It didn't start raining. It didn't start thundering or lightning. And eventually, the Aspen Mountain Rescue folks showed up. And they came up, and they had a traction splint and a litter and all this stuff. So they cut this guy's pants off. It was a sort of deal. His leg, I think it was his right leg, the upper part of his thigh mostly looked like it was straight, but his whole leg was flopped out to the side, which is pretty good indication his leg was broken up at the hip. But I think that's exactly what happened. So they get the traction splint on him, they get him packaged in the litter and everything, and then we helped slide the guy down the snow slope part. And so I helped the guys. I helped carry the litter down, and then there was another one of the rescuers, and then everybody else, they just kind of like planted their butts onto the snow surface and kind of made kind of an anchor of sorts on the snow slope. That way the the rescuer guy that was working the rope, he could lower him. He could kind of belay us down as we took this guy down the snow slope. And fortunately, I mean, it wasn't crazy. It wasn't terribly steep, and we didn't have that far to go down. I had to go about halfway down or something, but, you know, didn't want to, like, start sliding or anything with him. Get down to the bottom of the snow slope, and they brought in a helicopter to take him down to the hospital in Aspen. So they loaded him up on the helicopter, and away they went. And there was some of the mountain rescue people. They had driven like a truck up the road, and there's a couple ladies, a couple of the volunteers with the mountain rescue, who they brought the truck up and were maybe facilitating some communications and stuff. And they offered my sister and I a ride down. I don't know what the other three people would have done, but anyway, maybe they started hiking down. But they offered my sister and I a ride back down to our campsite, and I gladly accepted. Like, yeah, you know, we earned a ride. We earned a ride down. We hiked all the way up, so, you know, I didn't feel too bad about riding down. And we were involved in this rescue. But I asked one of the volunteers which 14er they saw the most rescues on. And she thought about it, and she said, probably Capitol Peak. We usually just take bodies off of the bells, or, you know, recover bodies off of the maroon bells. And they told us how, yeah, like I was saying, the maroon bells are rather dangerous mountains, and a good number of people have died on them. Capitol Peak is itself not. It's granite. It has better rock. It's more technical. It's not a technical climb, but it's more technical. And there's this knife edge ridge on it, which literally looks like a knife edge. It's actually pointy in parts that you have to go across. And some people, it's the type of thing, if you fall off of it, you're going to die, but you really shouldn't fall off of it. And I've climbed that a couple times. I think that'll probably become one of these stories, but how I got up at the first time. But anyway, yeah, they related some story about how some college kids that were down at the university or college down at Gunnison, they had come up and they climbed Capitol Peak, and they were going to do this deal where they were going to like rappel off of one of the faces on the mountain, which nobody ever does. And they didn't have enough rope, and they like got stuck like halfway down on the mountain or something like that. But anyway, so yeah, we rode down the road, and later that night we packed up our campsite, and we went into Aspen and got dinner at like the rib restaurant there, and we went over to the mountain rescue place and picked up like my mittens and my sweatshirt and that kind of stuff that they had packaged him up, the guy taken him to the hospital with. And they said that, yeah, sure enough, he'd broken his leg and all this. But yeah, so that's the story of when my sister and I climbed Castle Peak and wound up participating in a mountain rescue. But yeah, I have a whole list of these like epic outdoor stories. But anyway, that's number 2. But almost 20 minutes. Yeah, I was kind of afraid that got kind of long. But anyway, I'm Gareth, Flint Hills Briar. Thanks for joining me. See you next time.